A lot of you have been improving on application questions when it comes to theory content. Here's one application question that I'm going to cover, which is on biopsychology, and specifically looking at a little bit of localization, plasticity, and functional recovery. So have a read of the scenario first. You may want to pause for that. So the first thing is you definitely need to show your knowledge of the Broca's area and motor area, but more importantly, you're going to have to also focus on Megan and her father. So there's two real key points. So I say it's 2 marks to show that you've got your knowledge and 2 marks for application. So let's first start with what you should write here. So I would say Broca's area is important for speech production. So then you've made a comment, now relate it to her father. So Megan could expect to see her father having trouble speaking. Okay, so Megan's father will have that issue. Also, if you look back at your notes, it will say key terms. So Broca's aphasia is mentioned. So that is where you basically just have speech problems. So that's also something you should mention, because remember, key terms are crucial for getting the mark. So you'd say Megan's father is going to have trouble speaking. He's likely to suffer from Broca's aphasia, and specifically, he's going to suffer from slow speech. So that is your first real key point. Now, if we're thinking of the motor area, so as you know, that goes all the way across. It's the thing that's behind the frontal lobe. So it goes all the way across both left and right hemisphere. Now, if you remember motor movements, the left and right hemisphere, the left controls the left-hand side, and the left controls the right-hand side, and the right-hand side controls the left-hand side movement. So you know that's contralateral if you look back at your notes. So what would we expect to see in Megan's father? Well, first of all, we'd expect him to have poor movement on his right-hand side. So poor movement on right-hand side, because the scenario kind of implied left is damaged. And even if it didn't, just assume it was, because obviously I created the scenario just now. So left is damaged, left side of his hemisphere is damaged, which means his right-hand side movements are going to be problematic. So that's what he would expect to see in his, Megan would expect to see in his father. It would also be a good idea to say that he might have some form of paralysis on the right-hand side of his body, because obviously if that's damaged, it's possible that he could lose that function totally. And essentially that would be enough to get your 4 marks, because we've mentioned what the Broca's area is important for. I've linked it to Megan's father, and then we went to the motor area and I've linked it to Megan's father. So really stuck to the scenario and shown that I've got the knowledge in that area. Now moving on to the next question. Please take time to read the next question. So if I just scroll down, this is the next question. So you might want to pause. So here are some optional answers for this. So first of all, remember the idea that if one part of your brain is damaged, another part of your brain could compensate for the damaged area. So I've just referred to this, let me just change that. So we've got functional compensation for the damaged areas by nearby areas in the brain, so as I've just explained. You've got axon sprouting. If you look back at your class notes, there's 3 specific things that were mentioned. Axon sprouting was one. And this is just really where growth of axons, another thing is growth of dendrites from a damaged neuron. So you've got kind of like a recovery automatically happening in the damaged area, new axons are forming. Also, you could even have an intact neuron that actually helps out the damaged neuron so that it can improve. Sorry, that should be nearby, not near B. Another thing is new connections. Remember plasticity, this is specific to plasticity. It says new connections are constantly forming between neurons, and that can help recovery as well because your brain, you know, that those changes are happening constantly. Also, this isn't in your class notes, but again, this is why it's really important to look at different things like mark schemes, other textbooks if you can, but just having a read of different things, especially mark schemes. But this is another one that has been mentioned before, but not in your class notes. And it says physiotherapy can actually help increase brain stimulation on the opposite side of the brain. So if you remember, and then again, I'm referring back to the father. So in this case, the father's right hemisphere, because we already knew that his left hemisphere was damaged. Maybe that could compensate. If you think back to the case that we looked at in class on split brain research with the girl who had epilepsy and had half her brain removed, the doctor said that when they took out the right hemisphere, within hours, the left hemisphere was trying to compensate. So it does show that those kind of things happen. So remember to stick to the scenario. So I'd say, you know, bring in the father here and also bring in the father here. So you need to state a point and then, you know, refer back to the scenario. So I'll just give you an example. So if I said plasticity, Megan shouldn't worry because research suggests that new connections are constantly formed, and this can help her father's recovery. So that's what I mean by just those slight references back, but it has to be every time you're making a point because that's what, you know, this is all about. I'd say 2 of these points would be enough for a 3 mark. If it was a 4 mark, again, 2 in great detail, just like we done for the previous one. Hope that's helped.